Everyone talks about AI replacing artists, etu brute, but I wanted to see if it could do something much more useful. Build Blender add-ons that solve repetitive tasks. I asked Claude to make me 5 add-ons, and the last one might be my favorite happy accident tool I've used in a while. I am going to show you the 5 add-ons I built with Claude. Also, I'm going to show you how you can create your own add-ons with simple and efficient prompts. If you stay with me, I will also show you a secret tip to make your life way easier when trying to prompt these add-ons yourself. We've all been there. Imagine you are making a scene, modeling new objects, adding curves for details, really getting into the flow of things. An hour passes by. You look at your outliner. You think you should organize and rename things, but it's too much effort and you're lazy. But what if it wasn't too much effort? That's exactly what I set out to do with this first add-on. Number 1. Batch Rename. So this is the interface for batch rename. You have two options at the start, manual selection or by collection. In this case, I'm just going to use by collection. You select your collection from here, and then you put your required name in here, and now you have a preview down here, and you hit apply batch rename, and boom, every single object is changed. Next up, we have the find and replace. Now it does exactly what you expect it to. So let's see an example. You see these objects, it has cube underscore old in its name. Don't forget to switch the collection up here, of course. And now you need to just type in the old name and you just replace it with whatever you want. And you see the preview down here and you just hit apply batch rename. And there you go. Prefix or suffix is very easy to understand, I think. You can just add a word to the beginning of the object name or the end of the object name. Let's just see case conversion. So again, I'll go here and just change the collection. And now I can do all of these things. So in this case, let's try uppercase. Let's try lowercase now. You see, it's that easy. So I think this is a really useful add-on. I am for sure going to use it in my projects. Number 2, Origin Changer. This is one of the most functional add-ons that I have made with Claude. I was just frustrated with changing origins all the time and I wanted a quick solution. So the interface is the simplest that you will see. All you have to do is select a few meshes and just click one of these buttons to do your job. So I have already prepared these objects. The origins are wildly different in this scene. So let's try snap origins to bottom. As you can see, the add-on did it perfectly. It just places it at the bottom of the bounds of each object. Now let's try snap origins to top, and it works perfectly. Now there's another interesting option, move to ground z equal to 0. So what this does is just move your objects down to the ground at the 0 position of the z-axis. So my plane here is at the 0 position of the z-axis. So I'll click this option and try one of these. As you can see, it just snaps perfectly to the 0 position of the z-axis. Now you don't need to go into an object manually and select a face, put the cursor on top of it, and then right click, select set origin to 3D cursor. While I was making this video, a big development occurred in the Blender space. Anthropic is now a patron for the Blender Foundation. Now, I hope this is a net positive for Blender. More money is always good for development, but I just hope they don't shove these AI tools down our throats. Claude has already shown this new plugin which connects directly into Blender, but honestly, I am a little bit skeptical to use it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to become the next headline in the AI space. For now, I'll keep AI at an arm's length and watch from a distance. I'll continue using it as a browser-based app without it taking over every part of my software and local system. And I suggest you do the same. Now let me show you how you can go ahead and create these add-ons yourself. So all you have to do is go to CLAUDE AI and create a free account and get started. Trust me, the free plan is more than enough for this. You might get rate limited a few times, but if you have a little bit of patience, you will pull through just fine. I have created all these add-ons using the free plan. So now what do we prompt here? You just have to explain to Claude what you want as an add-on in Blender. You just have to give the Blender version to Claude and explain the problem in brief. So this is the prompt that I used for the Origin Changer add-on. Now you might think that this prompt looks a bit complicated, right? Remember the secret tip I mentioned at the start of the video? Well, that's where Gemini or ChatGPT comes in. You just have to explain the prompt very briefly to them and it will formulate a very nice prompt. After you enter this prompt to Claude, it will work its magic. Then after that, it'll just give you a Python file. Now the Python file is basically the add-on itself. Now you can go ahead to Blender and install it like any other add-on. Now if there are any issues or errors, you can just copy and paste it like I did here. Just explain it in brief where the error is occurring and Claude will take care of it. Then it will give you another Python file. You just have to uninstall the previous add-on and reinstall this one. So this is a back and forth process, right? It can take 2 to 3 attempts, it can take 20 attempts. So just be ready to have some patience here because you will hit the rate limit constantly during this process, especially if you have a free account like me. And if you want to add new features, you just have to type the prompt to Claude and it will do its thing. Number 3, asset drop physics. This one is a bit more of a niche add-on. Imagine you have to fill a box with objects and each object should not intersect with each other. It's really a big pain to slowly align each object individually. So in this case, this add-on comes really handy. So in the top section, you have your dynamic objects. Here, you select your objects that you want as collisions. So I'll select all of these. And now you have these options. Try to pick the one which is closest to your object. You can choose the mesh option, but it might be very heavy. So one of these primitives is better. In this case, my objects are shaped as cylinders, so I'll just select the cylinder option. And now I'll just click set selected as dynamic. You can see the colliders are created. Now in the second part, we have our colliders. Here you have to select your actual collider mesh with which your collision objects will interact. In this case, my object is quite dense, as you can see. So I will just use a cylinder object so that it's not as heavy. As you can see, I've prepared this cylinder object, which is just nothing but a cylinder which has been extruded inwards. So I'll just align it exactly where my object is, and then I'll just select mesh and select it as colliders. In this case, I have to select mesh because otherwise the collision will not work properly. And finally, I'll have to run simulation. Now, why did this happen? As you can see, our objects are actually quite small. So this is a weird Blender quirk that you have to get used to. Your objects really need to be scaled up because Blender can't really handle simulations at a very small scale. So let's just do that. Firstly, let's just remove all the collisions. And now let's just scale it like something like this should do. And of course, before doing the simulation, you have to apply the scale. So I'll press Ctrl A and scale while holding Alt. Let's do the process again. And now I'll just run the simulation. As you can see, it just worked very nicely. However, sometimes you will see there are quite a few gaps here. The way to eliminate those gaps is very simple. You just select your collider object, go into the collision settings here. Under sensitivity, there's a margin option. You just lower it to 0.001. And now let's just do it again. This frame looks good to me. So I'll just bake sim and remove physics. As you can see, it looks like a very natural collision of objects. Super easy to place manual objects like this. Number 4. Auto light placer. Now this next add-on is a very interesting one. So it takes an object and decides where to place the lights. So we have two options here. You can either select objects manually and use this collection option to select it per collection. And you have some light settings over here which you can change. And this one you can basically ignore for now. And this is an option to just link the lights, so all the lights will share the same object data. And finally, we have the button to actually place the lights. So let's see an example for this one. This is a plane with extruded faces, and all I did was just create a material for this plane and one for these extruded faces on top. I gave this emission material to these extruded faces. The rest of it is just a simple black material. Now watch what happens when I click Smart Place Lights. As you can see, the lights have been placed, but since the normals are pointing outwards, it has been placed the wrong way. It is very easy to fix it. You can just flip it on the X or Y axis by 180 degrees. We can just check the Z offset and increase it a little bit to update the lights. As you can see, the lights are perfectly placed according to the emission phases, and I did not have to do any manual work at all. But sometimes you will see that these lights are intersecting the edge of the objects. So what you can do in that case is just reduce the size scale like this, maybe like 90%, and apply scale. So now it's no longer touching the edges of the object. And finally, when you want to clear the lights from this add-on system, you can just click on confirm lights. So now if I just try to do anything, it won't work. This is a very wacky example that I created. I wanted to test the limits of this add-on, but let's see what happens when we click the button. Wow, this is just crazy, right? In this case, I have these lamps. The emission objects in these are quite complicated, but for these to work, you need to keep in mind that this add-on works best when there is a flat emission plane. So in this case, you can see that these cylindrical objects are the actual emission faces, but we don't really want that. So what I did was just create a emission plane that is as big as these lights, and I just put it behind these two tube lights, right? Somewhere around here. And all I did was just create an emission material and apply it to it. And you can just see it in the detection info. If it shows an emission material there, you are golden. Now I just made a quick array and applied this. Now in this case, linked lights would be very, very handy. So let's try that over here. As you can see, it has created the light and it has the same object data for all of these. However, the light looks very small. So let's try this update lights. So update lights just fixes it instantly. So sometimes you might have to play around with this update lights button. So some bugs might be here and there, but overall, I think this is a very great addition to your toolkit. Imagine you have to place like 100 lights manually in a scene. It is so time consuming. This add-on just simplifies that so much. Number 5, silhouette generator. Finally, we have arrived to my favorite tool. So let's just go through the options one by one. So first of all, we have the seed value. You can just set it to whatever you want. We will do the generate and regenerate a little bit later. Under generation, you have the primitive count. So it goes from down to 5 to up to 30. You can try out any number between that. Next, we have primitive types. Now, I have given only 4 primitives. If I started including cones and planes, the results would just not be very interesting to look at. Most of the times, cube and cylinder will just provide very nice results. Then we have our random scale and random rotation. I would recommend to keep this random rotation off unless you're going for a very organic object. If you're going for something like a tower or a building or some sort of shape which needs to be vertical, I would suggest to just keep random scale on. Now under form, we have chunkiness and vertical bias. You'll see what that means in a minute. Next up, we have the symmetry, and then we have our silhouette type. Now, this is very interesting because this plays a big part of your shape. Now, random is very random, honestly. So I would suggest either of these 3. And then we have these shape actions, finalize shape and presentation, which we'll get to very soon. Now let's try generate. As you can see, it just generated a random mesh of objects with this cube and cylinder primitives. You can add the torus and maybe regenerate if you want. As you can see, it's just creating very nice silhouettes. You can reduce the chunkiness and see how it looks. So basically in the voxel remesh size, it's just calculating way higher voxels for this. Now, if you just increase the chunkiness to very high values like 0.9 or so, and then click regenerate, it's going to give you a very blobby result, which might be something that you want. But in this case, we are just going to leave it at around 0.2 to 0.25 and then hit regenerate. Now, once you're happy with some shape, you can just click the finalize shape, which just removes it from this generator altogether. So it just goes into this collection called silhouette generator underscore finalized. So now if you click generate, it will start generating a new mesh. Now it's exactly the same, so we can't see. Let's regenerate again. Yeah, as you can see, it just generated a completely new result. Now let's try it with something that is with all primitive types, with random rotation and random scale. Now this might give some interesting results. Maybe if you're looking for cliffs, it could give you some nice options to go for. All right, now comes my favorite part. Go to a camera view and now click this button, activate black and white. How cool is that? It just turns everything into a black and white visual representation. And you can start placing your shapes there, right? So I think this will be very useful for concepting in general. If you just want to find some nice shapes that you like. You see, shape language is very important, and sometimes we just struggle to come up with shapes. So I hope that this add-on really helps you generate these shapes that might be useful. Now you might be thinking it would be nice if we had some sort of a mist pass or a depth view. Well, that's exactly what this button is for. Now you have a very nice depth representation. Of course, it has some limitations. As you can see, it doesn't transition very smoothly, but it can still help visualize things. Now to disable it, you can easily click the disable depth and click the disable black and white view, and you're back to your viewport. Now, obviously, this is a very creative tool. There's so many options that you can try, right? This is a lot of fun. So definitely, if you are checking out the add-ons, check this one. So all these add-ons that I showed are available in the description below. Before I let you go, I wanted to talk about the elephant in the room, AI. Because I know seeing these tools built in seconds can feel a little weird, maybe even a little scary. There's a lot of concern that AI is here to replace the artist, but for me, it's about where we draw the line. Personally, I don't use AI image or video generation for my creative work. To me, that's the soul of the project. If I let a machine pick the colors or the composition, I'm losing the very reason that I became a 3D artist in the first place. But these add-ons, this is just logistics. Renaming 100 cubes isn't creative. I'm open to AI making my life easier so I can spend more time actually being an artist. After all, wasn't AI promised to solve these issues in the first place? Now, you might say, what about the developers? Isn't this hurting them? I actually think it's the opposite. Claude can generate code, but it still does so with a lot of bugs. I mean, these add-ons took a lot of back and forth to get them to a working state. I'm sure the add-ons that I showed have some problem or some inefficient code which any real developer might expose. They can see the bugs we miss, optimize the math, and build architecture that AI simply can't imagine yet. I don't think you can vibe code an add-on like Geoscatter or HardOps with Claude yet. It's just these niche cases where it might not be worth it for a developer to fully produce a commercial product since the market for it might not be there. So my advice, set your boundaries. Use AI to delete the repetitive, the boring, and the tedious. Use it to clear the path, but don't let it walk the path for you. I hope these tools help you find that balance. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.